You got caught with drugs and you're facing some jail time. We're gonna talk about what you need to do to beat the charge. The first thing a prosecutor has to do is prove identity. They have to be able to link you to the drugs that they have possession of. Remember, when you're facing criminal charges, the standard the prosecutor has to prove is beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you can cast a little bit of doubt that it was you with that blunt, a little bit of doubt that it was you who was smoking weed on the patio, you might be able to get out of your charge. This is especially relevant if you get caught at a party where lots of people are drinking and lots of people might have illegal items. Who's to say whether it was you or someone else at the party that did the thing that the officer saw? Force them to positively ID you, force the state to present their evidence that correctly identifies you or fails to identify you as the person who had possession. Speaking of possession, it brings us to the second rule, which is that the prosecutor has to prove possession, custody, care, control, or management of the items. There's a lot of different ways to prove this. Possession is easy to prove if it's in your pants. You've got a little baggie in your front pocket, you definitely possessed it. It gets a little harder to prove when there's drugs sitting on the table of a hotel room and 4 people are around that. Who possessed those drugs? Who controlled those drugs? Usually it's going to be a lot of pointing. He said, she said, he said. But this is still a key element that the state must prove for your trial. If the prosecutor can't prove that you had possession of the drugs, it weakens their case tremendously. There's all kinds of factors when it comes to beating a drug charge. Remember, drug charges are serious. You don't want to risk this trying to do it yourself. Having a good criminal defense attorney is a big key to beating a drug charge. If you want help finding one who is verified and has a good reputation, go to notyourlawyer.law and we'll help you get plugged in with a local attorney who can fight for you. The third important element the prosecutor has to prove is that you had knowledge of the drugs. You see this when you think about a baggie that was in the back seat of your car. You see this when you think about drugs that turned up in a raid of an apartment or a house party. How did you have knowledge of the drugs? You're gonna say, I didn't know. The prosecutor's gonna say, of course you knew, it was your car. That's where we have conversations on who had access to the car. Can you bring forth evidence that other people had access to it, that you did not have exclusive control? Or is there evidence the prosecutor could bring in that you knew there were drugs and you were okay with it? Do you have Instagram posts or TikToks where you're smoking with a bunch of friends showing that you have knowledge of drugs being around you? All these types of things are gonna go back and forth in the courtroom setting. If you can convincingly show that you were unaware of the existence of drugs, this can be a big key to defending your drug possession charge. The fourth key, and I love how this lines up, is your Fourth Amendment rights. You have a constitutional right to not be searched unreasonably. A cop can't just walk up to you, start reaching in your pockets without probable cause, pull out drugs, and send you to jail. In fact, if a cop unreasonably searches or seizes you, a good lawyer can get any evidence they found, any drugs they found, thrown out, meaning you can walk away innocent even if you were guilty if the cops don't follow the law. For the whole system to work, everyone has to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules in the local city and state that you live in, but also the cops have to follow the rules. You can't just go around being Rambo, arresting whoever you want. And this is a big key that gets a lot of criminal possession charges overturned because cops are too aggressive. They don't get a search warrant. They don't have probable cause, or if they did have probable cause, they act outside of it. Knowledge is hard to prove because we're not psychics. We're not mind readers. So what you have to do is you have to look at a person's actions and say, can we infer, can we guess? Is it fair for us to look at what a person did and come to what they thought? And so things that they might look at are Instagram posts you made. If you say, I didn't know there were drugs there, I've never done drugs in my life, and then there's an Instagram post where you're smoking a blunt, hashtag 420, that's gonna pretty much ruin your case. If you say, I didn't know there were drugs in the back seat, and then they produce a text message that says, I've got the weed in the back, let's do this deal. It's proving that you had knowledge, and there's all different kinds of ways that they can prove knowledge. Our fifth principle is the chain of custody. Even if a person is guilty, even if they catch you and they do everything right when it comes to reading you your rights, having probable cause for a search. Even if that's all right, it's still on the officers, it's still on the cops to preserve the chain of custody. What does the chain of custody means? It means if you get caught with a little baggie of weed, that baggie can't just get thrown in the squad car. It needs to be properly marked and sealed and labeled. They need to fill out reports that say that they were the officer that found it. It needs to be weighed, because whether you're charged for a few grams or ounces or pounds, this matters when it comes to sentencing. So there are very, very strict guidelines around the chain of custody. If you have a good defense attorney, they may be able to prove that the weed, or the drugs in this case, were mishandled. They lost track of it. The bag wasn't labeled and it went into a room with a bunch of other bags of drugs. Who's to say if this is the right bag now? Or it was opened and things were put in it, or it was mishandled, or it was alone. There's so many different ways that you can go after the chain of custody. And in a drug possession charge, without drugs, it's pretty hard to be convicted. My last point is probably the most important. Don't say anything until you have an attorney. Cops are not your friends. They're looking to make a case. Prosecutor is not your friend. They're looking to improve their conviction rate. The judge is not your friend. They have a lot of work to do and you're just another case number to them. The only person who's gonna fight for you on your side is an attorney. So don't talk, don't incriminate yourself, don't try to outsmart the cop, say nothing. You have a Fifth Amendment right to say nothing. Don't say anything. I need to speak to my lawyer. And remember, on this channel, I'm not your lawyer until you need me. We got a lot of great content on the channel. Check out our street fight video talking about self-defense. We have some really cool ones on eviction, and we're bringing out new content every single week. If you have a legal issue and you want help to be on one of our interview series, reach out to me on Instagram or contact us on the website. If you or a loved one are a high school chemistry teacher riddled with cancer, cooking pounds and pounds of methamphetamines for the Arizona mob, remember, you can always sing to the officer, "It wasn't me smoking weed in the bathroom. It wasn't me doing dabs on the counter." George Bush had a DUI, Barack Obama admitted to doing weed, and Donald Trump smoked Hillary Clinton. We've all done drugs.